The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I want to confirm that Bill Barr, one of the most respected jurists in the country, highly respected lawyer, former attorney general under the Bush administration, a terrific man, a terrific person, a brilliant man. I did not know him until recently when I went through the process of looking at people. And he was my first choice from day one, respected by Republicans and respected by Democrats. He will be nominated for the United States Attorney General, and hopefully that process will go very quickly. And I think it will go very quickly, and I've seen very good things about him even over the last day or so when people thought that it might be Bill Barr. So Bill Barr will be nominated for the United States Attorney General position. I think he will serve with great distinction. I also want to inform you that Heather Nauert, somebody that we know very well, who's done a great job at as working with Mike Pompeo and others over at the State Department. Heather Nauert will be nominated. She's going to work with Nikki Haley to replace Nikki at the United Nations. She'll be ambassador to the United Nations. She's very talented, very smart, very quick, and I think she's going to be respected by all. So Heather Nauert will be nominated for the ambassador to the United Nations. Those are two very big ones. I have another one for tomorrow that I'm going to be announcing at the Army-Navy game.
What?
I can give you a little hint. It will have to do with the Joint Chiefs of Staff and succession. And I look forward to telling you, and I'll see you later.
Oh! Wow. That's a lot of news. And he kept repeating it over and over and over and over and over. I mean, this is what he does. He did not know the State Department. He couldn't recall State Department. He doesn't know who Heather, he knows who she is. He doesn't know what her qualifications are or anything like that. But I would love for you right now to meet our new UN ambassador, everybody.
Thursday, yes. Good morning to all. Sending your kids to school on a bus and then they pass out from the heat.
Well, I remember that. Did you ride the bus? I remember. It gets hot.
Ball last night. Anything else going on?
Heather, what's more valuable? Would you rather have the beer or the baseball?
I'd rather have the beer,
Me too.
actually.
But the next day you'd rather have the ball.
If my kids were with me, then I'd take the ball. To all of you, we begin right now with a shocking attack on a city bus. A passenger kicking an 80-year-old woman right in the face. A warning, this video is hard to watch. Trump taking a shot at the PGA for moving the World Golf Tournament from his Miami resort to Mexico. Listen. Do you remember Charles Wade? He's the Black Lives Matter leader charged with sex trafficking. Well, we are now learning that he's an alleged financial scammer, too. A lawyer for a St. Louis real estate developer says that they lost more than $10,000 after Wade skipped town without paying rent. Some reports estimate he also took in hundreds of thousands of dollars in online donations for Operation Help or Hush. That's a group he co-founded.
There is our new UN ambassador, everybody. There she is. Let me say that I have all the confidence in the world that Bill Barr from the Reagan administration, this is how low he had to go. This is how far back in the Wayback Machine Donald Trump has to go to find somebody to work for him as Attorney General of the United States. I mean, you would think there'd be a line to be Attorney General of the United States. Not even Rudy wants that gig. Okay, not even Chris Christie wants that gig. So we're down to the Reagan administration now, everybody. And Fox and Friends. Bill Barr is an old GOP flack who goes back to the Reagan administration. His recent job, I think, has been a Matthew Whitaker impersonator saying he would investigate Hillary Clinton. So, bingo, there's your guy. And Nauert is a former Fox News hostess who looks fabulous in a sleeveless purple with a Jimmy Choo peep toe. Oh. So I'd like to tell, the students who do international studies at Stanford and Yale, Harvard, Oxford International Studies. This government work is not for you unless you could rock a designer heel at 6 o'clock in the morning. If that's not your gig, sorry, don't want your brains, just want your brawn. And let me just say, I have all the confidence in the world that Bill Barr and Heather Nauert will live up to the expectations set by Ryan Zinke and Betsy DeVos and Tom Price and Alex Acosta and the President of the United States. Who is nuts, man. He is tweeting like crazy. Why all these announcements this morning? Wow. Because we are sitting here right now on Comey Watch. We are sitting here right now on Mueller Watch. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. They probably have art. They probably have recordings. They probably have wiretaps. But what we're waiting for is Mueller sentencing documents on Michael Cohen, which would outline how much, cooperation Michael Cohen offered in exchange for 15 to 60 years in prison, being knocked down to maybe 6 months. That's a lot of quid pro quo. That's a lot. Ever wonder what quid pro quo means? This is what quid pro quo means. It means I give you recordings of the president doing illegal things, and you say, here's your get out of jail free card. That's what quid pro quo means in English. So we're waiting for that, and we're also waiting for the Manafort sentencing document, which will show why he lost his deal. Because the president of the United States, he's not a rat. Cohen's a rat. He comes from a family of rats. They're all a bunch of rats. Dance, Spider, dance. Give me another drink. You know what I'm saying? So, so we're waiting, and they're telling me 5/5/20 is, like this little heads up that we're getting. And so the president was tweeting his brains out this morning. The tweets he sent out this morning, can we just go back to Covfefe? Because that made more sense than the crap that he was spewing this morning before he went downstairs and stood in front of the cameras and told us that there's going to be some, he's doing the coin flip tomorrow at the Navy Army game or something. We just had the Supreme Commander of the Navy show up dead. The guy from Bahrain, the Admiral, just, show up dead. Not a word about this dude. Now all of a sudden he's talking about making changes in the Joint Chiefs, which means Dunford's leaving, because Dunford is the Joint Chiefs. And yesterday Dunford was talking about how the Russians took the Ukrainian Navy sailors, 23 of them, and won't give them back, and took all these vessels from the Ukrainians. And Dunford was saying, well, there has to be some response. Bye-bye. Yeah, Dunford saying Russia needs to pay a price for doing this. So all of a sudden, the president this morning, I'm going to have tomorrow another announcement for you. Not just that I hired a Fox News model and a spokeshostess for the State Department to be our chief negotiator at the United Nations, where real diplomacy happens. I mean, this is not a PR job. This is a real job. This is, the kind of thing where she's going to face her Russian counterpart's got 30 years in foreign negotiations. Her Russian counterpart, her German counterpart has 30 years. She's a Fox News hostess, who's now the spokeshostess for the State Department, who says really crazy things. Okay, I gotta show you one thing she said. On the anniversary of D-Day, she said, D-Day, can I just tell you why the UN exists? The UN exists. It came into existence to vanquish Germany. That's why we have the United Nations, okay? We tried the League of Nations after the First World War. It wasn't good. Didn't work. And after the fascist rise of Hitler, we tried to get another global consortium together, and that is the current United Nations. It came into existence to vanquish Germany. 26 nations jointly pledged in 1942 not to surrender to savage and brutal forces seeking to subjugate the world. That is why we have a United Nations. The D-Day landings, a cornerstone of the unwavering Allied pledge that the United Nations undertook in 1942, and the basis of the Nazi defeat on the Western Front, is why the United Nations still exists. Here's what she said.
Tomorrow is the anniversary of the D-Day invasion. We obviously have a very long history with the government of Germany, and we have a strong relationship with the government.
I don't think she understood which side the United States was on back in the day. I don't think she understands that we didn't fight with the Germans on D-Day. We fought against the Germans on D-Day. I don't think she got that. I'm not sure she's clear about that. So now we have a Fox News hostess who used to do side stories. She wasn't even, she was hired to stand. She wasn't even invited to sit on the sofa yet, right? Heather Nauert, made her bones. Do you know how she got famous? Monica Lewinsky, the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Yes, she was cutting her teeth at Fox News during the Monica Lewinsky scandal. She has absolutely no diplomatic experience whatsoever. She is going to face Germany's ambassador, Christopher Hugson. He joined the diplomatic service in 1980. He has fostered bilateral ties between the United States and Germany since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Now if Nauert was over there not being a hostess, but actually understanding we didn't fight with Germany on D-Day, we fought against Germany on D-Day, and that battle was the cornerstone of our victory over Germany in the first place. Maybe she would have cited German Reconstruction in 1990 or the end of the Cold War and the falling of the Berlin Wall. But oh no, D-Day for her is, But she's going to face a guy, from Russia, Vasily Nebenzia. 3 decades of diplomatic experience, time already spent in the United Nations, since, the 80s. China, you have Mao Zedong, who also brings 30 years of negotiating experience to his UN position. Karen Pierce from the UK, she joined the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in 1981, manages portfolios in the United States, Eastern Europe, and Asia. And here in the United States, we had Adlai Stevenson, who was a Navy veteran, former governor of Illinois, diffused the Cuban Missile Crisis. Thank you, Adlai. We had a former Supreme Court Justice, Arthur Goldberg. We had Richard Holbrooke. He was the ambassador to Germany. He helped broker the 1995 Dayton Peace Accords to end the Bosnian War. Now, Nikki Haley had no foreign experience, but she was elected twice, to be the governor of South Carolina. This girl is a Fox News model who looks so good in a sleeveless. And she's got it down. If you want your legs to look longer on TV, can I give you the little tip? Wear nude shoes. It elongates. And the higher the heel, the closer to God. Oh my God.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Sources say State Department spokeswoman Heather Nauert is expected to be nominated as the next American ambassador to the United Nations. Nauert is a former Fox News anchor and has been serving as the State Department spokesperson.
There's no question Heather has briefed effectively representing the views of the president, but that's not what this job is. That's, in fact, a small sliver, a tiny sliver of this job. And the most important part really happens behind the scenes because historically, and in recent time as well, this role has been a person who has really been meeting with other UN ambassadors who often are the highest level right before foreign secretaries from other countries. They're negotiating deals behind the scenes. They're really on the front lines of diplomacy for the United States. And they've also historically been the leaders unofficially of kind of the diplomatic corps. So this is a risky move for Trump because this is a role now that probably will not be taken at that level of seriousness by other UN ambassadors, and it really diminishes the effectiveness of our role of the UN ambassador in New York.
That's because Donald Trump doesn't care about our relations with Europe, doesn't care about diplomacy at all. He doesn't care. I mean, it's such an obvious, tell that he would pick, a girl who, well, Randy, she played herself on 24. Multiple episodes. What have you done? Well, I would be a better UN ambassador now that I think of it. You don't know this about me. Here's a news flash, everybody. Here's just another interesting facet of the Randi Rhodes story. I was once Miss United Nations. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I was. In 4th grade. Oh, you laugh. In 4th grade, I raised more money for Trick or Treat for UNICEF. In my little orange canister, I organized my whole, not just my 4th grade class. Oh, no. Oh, hell no. My entire elementary school I organized. And we put on a play based on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. It's all coming back to me now. This is crazy. It was called Who and What's Healthin'. I know, but I was in 4th grade. And we put on a whole play, and it was modeled after Laugh-In, and we had skits and da-da-da-da-da, and you had to buy tickets, and all the money that was generated by my school. We did matinees, we did, Friday night show, a Saturday night show, and a Sunday matinee, and all the money that we raised, I donated to the United Nations UNICEF Children's Fund. And for that, I was named Miss United Nations. And my mom and me were invited to the United Nations, where they gave me, I don't even know what I got. I don't know if it was a paper or a pin or, some sort of a letter. I don't know. But I remember my mother and I going to the United Nations, and she never shut up at Mahjong ever again. My daughter. Well, and... yeah, she was Miss United Nations. It's like it was a beauty pageant or something, because, it sounded like a beauty pageant to her, and that's what she wanted me to be. Not a brainiac, fool like I am. Not some journalistic, inclined, curious, got to know what's going on in the world. No, she just wanted me to be pretty and marry well, but that was not in the cards. But yes, so I'm more qualified to be the UN ambassador than Heather Nauert. And it's because he couldn't care less what the entire world thinks of us or does with us, or, any treaty we have, oh, by the way, this is what Rex Tillerson actually told everybody. He sat down. Rex Tillerson what his payout was from ExxonMobil? Do you have any idea what the payout was when he wanted to be Secretary of State? And Pence apparently brought in Rex. And when Pence introduced Donald Trump, and he realized, oh, I got somebody who's willing to work for me, who's, a CEO of ExxonMobil and knows Russia and the other petrol states, the Saudis, etc., right? He said, ooh, let's hire him, right? So Rex had to leave ExxonMobil. He had been there his entire life since graduating. He was born in Wichita Falls, Texas, where I've lived. Oh, my God. That was my first introduction to talk radio, Wichita Falls, Texas, where they had these preachers going, oh, mothers, don't weep for your children. Get to know Lady Mary Jane. That is what is possessing the minds of the sensimilla is the demon seed. And oh my God, that was the first talk radio I'd ever heard in my life in Wichita Falls, Texas, northern Texas. That's where he's from, Tillerson. And he went to engineering school and then went from engineering school to work for ExxonMobil and never left, and just worked his way up and became the CEO of ExxonMobil. So when he was offered Secretary of State, it made no sense, but he had to leave ExxonMobil. You know what they paid him out? $180 million. But he had to promise that he would not compete. He had to sign a non-compete. And he said he would never do anything in the oil and gas business until, I think, 2027 or some such crap. And he's like, I don't know, he's like 60-something. 67. I think he's 67. He was born in 52, whatever that makes him. 1952. So anyway, he sat down with Bob Schieffer. They were at some charity event, because this is how he spends his time now, being philanthropic, because he can't work. So he sat down with Bob Schieffer, and he said the most amazing stuff. I mean, just the most amazing stuff. Bob Schieffer asked him, how would you describe President Donald Trump? And Tillerson, who is a diplomat, he's a careful, thoughtful guy. He's a CEO, okay? He knows, you can't say bad things about this guy because you might have to do a deal with him tomorrow, whatever. He just let it spew. He just let it fly. Oh.
Director Comey, do you stand by the decision?
That's Director Comey.
How would you describe Donald Trump?
Well, most of you probably know some of this, but I had never met Donald Trump until the day he asked me to be Secretary of State. He acts on his instincts. In some respects, that looks like impulsiveness, but it's not his intent to act on impulse. I think he really is trying to act on his instincts. It was challenging for me, coming from the disciplined, highly process-oriented ExxonMobil Corporation, to go to work for a man who is pretty undisciplined, doesn't like to read, doesn't read briefing reports, doesn't like to get into the details of a lot of things, but rather just kind of says, look, this is what I believe, and you can try to convince me otherwise, but most of the time you're not going to do that.
How did your relationship go off the rails?
Well, I think part of it was, obviously, we are starkly different in our styles. We did not have a common value system. When the president would say, well, here's what I want to do, and here's how I want to do it. And I'd have to say to him, well, Mr. President, I understand what you want to do, but you can't do it that way. It violates the law. It violates a treaty. He got really frustrated. I didn't know how to conduct my affairs with him any other way than in a very straightforward fashion.
Oh my God. Wow. The president wanted me to break the law. The president wanted to violate treaties that the United States are signatories to. The president, and when I would tell him you can't do it that way, he'd get pissed off. He'd get mad. Just want you to know, the president has apparently seen this interview with Bob Schieffer this morning on CBS because he tweeted about it. And here's what he had to say about a man who was so valuable to a multi-international company, okay, and was paid $180 million not to compete against them ever. Donald Trump said, Mike Pompeo's doing a great job. I'm very proud of him. His predecessor, Rex Tillerson, didn't have the mental capacity needed. He was dumb as a rock, and I couldn't get rid of him fast enough. He was lazy as hell. Now it's a whole new ball game. Great spirit at State. State is where the news model, Heather Newart, came from. He hired a Fox Jimmy Choo wearing spokesgirl. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. He's lazy as hell. The president has 90 hours of executive time on his schedule every week. He does absolutely nothing except go to rallies and talk to the news media and tweet. That's all he freaking does. We just did a 2-week extension on the financing of the United States because they didn't get anything done. So much for his effing wall. Oh, and now, is there any doubt in your mind that Rex Tillerson called the president an effing moron? Right? Remember that? That's why Tillerson was asked to leave, because it became, known to the president that Rex Tillerson, who is a diplomatic guy, you can't be CEO of an international, multinational petro thing, a giant company like that. Whether you like what they do or you don't like, without being diplomatic and not trashing, other heads of state and other, and here, he worked with Trump's, and just, oh my God, he's an effing moron. And it got back to Trump, and that's why Tillerson is no longer our Secretary of State. And Mike Pompeo, a congressman from Kansas, is. And now the spokesmodel is our UN ambassador. Listen, like I said, Nikki Haley had no experience either, but at least she was elected twice, and she seems to be into it. Newark is, she wasn't even invited to sit on the sofa yet. She was, but she did play herself in 24 multiple episodes. So who am I to say? You're right. I've never played myself in multiple episodes of 24. I did play myself in a movie called Left of the Dial. It was an HBO thing. It was good. It was very good. It was good. I was satisfied with my performance. I was fat then, though. You can find it on Amazon. Yeah, they do sell it on Amazon. There's like one copy left because I bought them all, so nobody else could have them. It's like trying to buy all the Vogue magazines when you take a bad picture, like that. Yeah, so I bought them all. I bought every copy. But yeah, I mean, I was Miss United Nations. I don't see how he skipped over me. I don't understand it. I'm not sure. So, and now tomorrow we're going to have some, our Joint Chiefs of Staff is going to change, and he's going to announce it at the coin toss at the Army-Navy game. Yeah, he takes this whole governing thing seriously, doesn't he? He's a real force to be reckoned with, and I'm sure the whole world is like, ooh, Trump is he's quite something. Wow, he's got a grip on what's best for America. And, and the reason why we couldn't get, the funding for our government, except for 2 more weeks, is because of his effing wall. He wants that wall. He wants it. And you don't hear anything about the caravan on the Fox, right? They're obsessed now with interviewing Rudy Giuliani, who's very busy telling the public that watches, the Trump pansies, the Cult 45 members. They're all over the place saying, and the conservative radio talk show host today going, oh, this Mueller report, nothing to see here. Move along. I mean, nobody's getting jail time because there was no crimes committed. No, nobody's getting jail time because Mueller is sending the message that if you cooperate with me and you give me somebody over you give me somebody more important than you, more senior than you, I'll give you no jail time. I'll give you a get out of free jail card is what I'll give you, but you better bring the goods. I need corroboration. I need tapes. I need emails. I need communications of every sort. You ever, record the president? Oh, you did? Yeah, Omarosa did. Remember Omarosa?
Can I ask you a couple of questions? Is the president aware of this?
Let's not go down the road. This is a non-negotiable discussion.
I don't want to negotiate. I've never had a chance to talk to you, General Kelly. So if this is my departure, I'd like to have at least an opportunity to understand.
We can talk another time. This has to do with some pretty serious integrity violations. So I'll let it go with that. So the staff and everyone on the staff works for me, not the president.
Oh, the staff works for me, not the president. Guess who's leaving? John Kelly. Out the door. Now, didn't the president just say he just made an announcement? I've asked John Kelly to stay on through 2020. Yeah, he's leaving today. Well, I don't know that he's leaving today, but his departure was announced today. John Kelly is leaving. So God only knows. I mean, this man, he goes through staff like most people go through toilet paper on a Saturday morning. I'm serious. This guy, it's just nobody wants to work for him. Just nobody does. And this Mueller report is, probably fairly devastating, which would explain why everybody is fleeing the interviews. Also, what we learned today, John Kelly sat down with Mueller. Yeah. John Kelly interviewed Mueller. Mueller interviewed John Kelly.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Okay, Comey has emerged from a closed-door session that was called by the Republicans in a last-ditch effort to investigate Hillary Clinton's emails. It was a joint call from Goodlatte and Darrell Issa. Bye-bye, Darrell. Bye. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. The Judiciary and Oversight Committees. Here he is outside talking to reporters.
Reaffirming FISA.
Oh, I can't hear it. Oh, man. There's no volume. Oh, wait, I can't.
Door for a year and a half now. What can't you answer?
Well, the FBI, for understandable reasons, doesn't want me talking about the
details. Okay, keep going. Oh, please keep going.
FBI director, and you've been out the door for a year and a half now. What can't you answer?
Well, the FBI, for understandable reasons, doesn't want me talking about the
Oh, come on! Oh, man. I knew this was going to happen today because it was just too much. Just too much breaking freaking news. What's that?
No one can comment on anything.
No one can comment on anything? It sounded to me like he was commenting on something, and I think I know what he was commenting on. He was commenting on the fact that when he appeared behind closed doors at the Joint Oversight Judiciary Committee Republican behind closed doors interview, the FBI attorneys went with him, and the FBI attorneys would not allow him to answer a number of questions. I know this because there were reporters that were in the room, the closed door room. And this is what I've been told, that the FBI lawyers would not allow James Comey to answer a bunch of questions because of the ongoing investigation. And therefore, Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan of the Freedom Crackers decided that Comey's testimony was incomplete, and therefore the agreement that Comey had reached with the court to release the transcripts of his testimony to Darrell Issa's Oversight Committee and Bob Goodlatte's Judiciary Committee, which will not be it will not be Darrell Issa's, it will be Elijah Cummings' Oversight Committee, and it will not be Goodlatte's Judiciary Committee. It will be Gerald Nadler's Judiciary Committee. And so Jordan and Meadows of the Freedom Crackers, along with Issa and Goodlatte, are now saying because the testimony was incomplete, we're not going to release the transcripts of Comey's interview. So Comey went to court, and, I kept on reminding you about this all week because this was a story that wasn't getting much play. The fact that because everybody's waiting for the Mueller report on Cohen, obviously, it's going to be either completely redacted or very elucidating. And the other is on Manafort. Again, same story. I know the Manafort. I know a bunch of the Manafort's going to be under seal, meaning it's going to have the big black magic marker over it. Because of the nature of the ongoing investigation. However, Comey went to court. When he was subpoenaed, okay, he went to court, and not to quash the subpoena. It's not that he didn't want to appear. It's that he wanted to have public testimony. He wanted to appear, but he wanted the American people to hear what he was going to testify to today, because it's the same old stuff. I mean, he was probably asked about Strzok and Page, the guys that they were exchanging anti-Trump texts. It's the same topics, but the FBI places, limits on what you can testify to because of the nature of the ongoing investigation. So this is what they're going to use as an excuse. But what I was saying was Comey went to the court and he asked, could he testify in public? And the court said that, they had no say over what the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee wanted to have happen. So then he said, well, can I quash the subpoena? And they said, no, you can't quash the subpoena. It's a congressional subpoena. You have to comply. All right, well, then can we make a deal? So he made a deal with Goodlatte. And the deal he made with Goodlatte was that he could speak immediately after his testimony and that the transcripts of what he said behind closed doors would be made public within 24 hours. And I told you that I suspected the reason why they wanted that 24-hour buffer. Yeah, we had a lot of buffers, Senator, a lot of buffers. The reason why they wanted a 24-hour buffer was to spin, and the spin has already begun. The spin is, well, since the FBI attorneys told Comey he was not allowed to answer this question or that question because there's an ongoing investigation. Now they're going to say, well, his testimony wasn't complete, and so we're not going to release the transcripts within 24 hours. We'll see. We'll know tomorrow. But they were supposed to release the transcripts by tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. So by tomorrow, 4:30 p.m., you'll know whether or not they're saying, oh, well, we have to call him back, and so his testimony's incomplete, and we can't tell you nothing, bupkis. We can't tell you nothing. And that's why the president is tweeting up a storm today, and that's why the president is announcing all this crap today, because he's trying to distract everybody. He was trying to distract everybody from the fact that the prosecutors are going to release the sentencing document for Cohn, the sentencing document for Manafort, and Comey was testifying up on Capitol Hill. And the president was, like I said, the stuff that he was tweeting this morning made, Covfefe made more sense than anything he tweeted this morning. Rex Tillerson is lazy. Couldn't wait to get rid of him. What the? You're appointing this wonderful. He's a fabulous guy. He's a respected guy. He's a guy of integrity. I don't even know him. I didn't even meet him until yesterday. Bill Barr, right, to the Attorney General. He doesn't care about anything but himself. He isn't hiring people because they could do a good job for the American people in international relations, or do a good job for the American people in labor, or do a good job for the American people at the EPA. In fact, they just overturned the Clean Water Act again. Okay, they just opened up another 9 million acres of protected lands to oil drilling. You know what I mean? He doesn't care about the American people. He cares about himself. Rich in Denver.
Hey, Randy. Good afternoon, my goddess.
Hi.
My goddess, brilliant goddess. Happy Friday to you. First things first. Happy Hanukkah, a festival of light.
Thank you.
And
yes, I have a cousins get together on Sunday. My cousins for the last day of Hanukkah.
and to all the other holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Boxing Day, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. Hey, would you like I know it's donations are always. Would you like cash in your hot little hands, or would you like some swag? I got around the corner here, Karen. I got some swag, Yeah, whatever, You got any swag, Would you like some cash, or would you like me to buy some swag?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Cash. Cash is king. Cash is
king.
Cash
is coming. Okay. And these are the men, I love your Goodfellas references. I got it on DVD. Uncatchable for $3. For $3, Randy. And now I'm going to lay out the Mueller. And these are the men that Roger Stone put together for what turned out to be the biggest heist of a presidential election in history, along with a guy named Putin, and along with a guy named MBS. And this ended up becoming akin to the Lufthansa heist. What do you think? And Mueller, what do you think Mueller said to Kissler acting to Cohen as hey, he's going to make us. They're opening up the books. Mueller's opening up the books, all right, And you know what happened? Ended up happening to Tommy, He's going to be getting kind of the same treatment.
Well, here's the deal. I said this a long, long time ago, and I know I'm right now. I said this is going to be a RICO investigation. This is going to be a racketeering investigation. This is going to be treated just like an investigation of the mob. There is no question in my mind that is exactly how Mueller has proceeded. There is no question in my mind that the Trump family is a crime family, that they have done every crime you could possibly think of, including conspiracy to defraud the United States, money laundering for foreign adversaries, the LLCs that own these apartments in his building, the Saudis, the emoluments clause, everything you could possibly. And, and there is a domestic emoluments clause. It's not just that he made money off of foreign governments. It's not just that he used our veterans to lobby against the 9/11 families. That story from yesterday was sickening. It's not just that, okay? What it is there's a domestic emoluments clause. What does that mean? That means that the President of the United States is only permitted to take money through salary, That's the only money a president of the United States is allowed to take. And there is a batch of subpoenas went out yesterday to the Trump Organization and to the Trump Hotel, the old post office, where at the very beginning of this, remember I said to you, oh, he's now the landlord and the he's now the
lessee.
Yeah, he's the lessee and the lessor. He's both. Yeah. I mean, how could that be? So a bunch of subpoenas went out. The court said, yes, you can subpoena the president in a civil case. There's precedent. That's what they did to Bill Clinton. And so they subpoenaed him. There's a batch of subpoenas that went out this morning. That's another part of this crime investigation. However, the idea that Michael Cohen, the fixer, that he has a fixer. How sick is that? And that, he has Manafort, who's, a dirty blood money lobbyist that lobbies for every autocrat, every killer on the planet, to the point where his own daughters were texting each other going, that money that dad gave us is blood money,
Blood money,
Right.
Yeah.
And that there's
It's
secret
sickening.
ledgers that show that he received $12 million and they're in Ukraine. And I mean, the whole thing is going like a RICO prosecution. That's what's happened here.
And it's going, Randy, to Professor Rhodes. It's going to Mueller is moving nice and slow, just like the John Podesta, the risotto for the recipe. Nice and slow. That's what Mueller's going.
I don't think it's slow at all. I mean, most of these investigations take years. I mean, you look at the Whitewater thing that dragged on forever. This is only we're in the 19th month of this investigation. We've already had 36 indictments. We have guilty pleas from, high-ranking senior officials, Michael Flynn and George Papadopoulos, who is much more interesting than people, think. So is Carter Page. Yeah. But now you got Michael Cohen, the president's own attorney. You've got Paul Manafort, the president's campaign chairman. You got Rick Gates, the president's deputy campaign manager. I mean, these are like amazing guilty pleas that he's gotten already. So I don't think he's going slow.
It's like, Watergate was about 2 years, I mean, I guess that's, but it's like you said, Randy, only qualifications to work for Idiot Boys that you're a criminal, or you're a propaganda pipeline bimbo, from fake news channel. Hey, Randy, one more question. Do you think Fred's lawyer, do you think he's given Mueller anything? Fred Trump's lawyer, the guy Cohen who has even more stuff than Cohen does?
Oh, Weisselberg, yes, of course.
I haven't heard anything about Weisselberg.
Well, you won't until the report comes out. Weisselberg has been given limited immunity to give his testimony to Mueller about the Trump financial. This is probably the money laundering piece, and so there's no reason to hear anything about Weisselberg until the report comes out. So, all right, federal prosecutors in New York have just released the Michael Cohen sentencing memo. I have to read it during this break, but it looks like they are still recommending substantial jail time for Michael Cohen. Jesus. The Southern District of New York cited sentencing guidelines of 51 to 63 months in prison. Wow, that's years. That's a lot of years. They asked for a substantial term of imprisonment. They noted that their recommendation be modestly lower than the suggested range of prison time suggested in federal guidelines. They also wrote, while Cohen, as his own submission makes clear, also enjoyed a privileged life, his desire for even greater wealth and influence precipitated an extensive course of criminal conduct. They said his cooperation was ultimately credible and useful to the ongoing investigation, but they said Cohen repeatedly declined to provide full information about the scope of any additional criminal conduct in which he had engaged or had knowledge. I'm going to have to read the entire document, but recommending 51 to 63 months, saying he cooperated substantially but not fully. Not fully. I bet there are phone calls that he didn't want to give. I don't know. We'll see.
languishing in solitary confinement, living in a cell the size of a parking space, and may need mental health treatment. Her family says she's run out of money to pay lawyers, and she's just been given a public defender. Butina, charged with conspiracy and acting as an unregistered foreign agent, is believed by prosecutors to have infiltrated American conservative groups, including the NRA, allegedly at the direction of a high-level Russian official. What information could she give up to prosecutors?
What she was tasked with doing, what steps she took to actually conduct those tasks, and who, if anyone, was complicit in those activities here in the United States.
A plea deal for Maria Butina could be a big problem for Paul Erickson, a Republican operative who Butina allegedly had a romantic relationship with.
A few of the lessons that
Erickson has received a so-called target letter from federal investigators, according to the Daily Beast. A letter saying they're considering charging him with conspiracy and secretly acting as a foreign agent.
If you get a target letter, that's serious. That means charges are most definitely imminent. Potentially, he could face the same charges as Ms. Butina.
Prosecutors have said Erickson helped Butina in her efforts to establish back channels between the Kremlin and the Republican Party. A source tells CNN Erickson sent an email to a Trump campaign advisor in 2016, trying to facilitate a meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin. Those efforts appear to have been rebuffed by the Trump campaign.
Oh boy, everybody is entering into some sort of plea deal, or they're negotiating for lesser sentences. This Maria Butina story, and this Erickson dude from, I guess he's Wyoming, someplace remote. You know that story, right? She's apparently a honeypot who was sent over here by Putin to infiltrate the NRA, and so that the NRA could funnel money to the Trump campaign, $30 million to the Trump campaign. And now she got caught, and also her lover got caught. And, she's saying it was a relationship of convenience. She only kind of slept with him and recorded Beauty and the Beast in a studio with him and sang and loved him and pretended to on behalf of the Russian government. So now she's in solitary confinement, and her lawyers are negotiating a plea deal for her. Now, if she pleads guilty, I just want you to know, there will be no justice for her. If she pleads guilty, they will extradite her to Russia. She'll go right back to Russia. Isn't that something? All right, so the Michael Cohen sentencing document is out. It's 37 pages without the index. Okay. Here's what it says in the preliminary statement. It says, Defendant Michael Cohen is scheduled to be sentenced on December 12th, 2018. The United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York respectfully submits this memorandum in connection with that sentencing and in response to the defendant's sentencing memorandum dated November 30th. Cohen, an attorney and businessman, committed 4 distinct federal crimes over a period of several years. He was motivated to do so by personal greed and repeatedly used his power and influence for deceptive ends. Now he seeks extraordinary leniency, a sentence of no jail time based principally on his rose-colored view of the seriousness of the crimes, his claims to a sympathetic personal history, and his provision of certain information to law enforcement. But the crimes committed by Cohen were more serious than his submission allows and were marked by a pattern of deception that permeated his professional life and was evidently hidden from friends and family members who wrote on his behalf. Oh my God, they're saying he's a mob attorney. Cohen did provide information to law enforcement, including information that assisted the special counsel's office on ongoing matters, as described in the special counsel office's memorandum to the court. And the office agrees that this is a factor to be considered by the court, and they name the title. But Cohen's description of those efforts is overstated in some respects and incomplete in others. To be clear, Cohen does not have a cooperation agreement and is not receiving a Section 5K1 letter either from his office or the special counsel's office, and therefore is not properly described as a cooperating witness, and that term is commonly used in this district. As set forth in the Probation Department's pre-sentence investigation report, the applicable United States sentencing guidelines range is 51 to 63 months imprisonment. Oh. This range reflects Cohen's extensive, deliberate, and serious criminal conduct, and this office submits that a substantial prison term is required to vindicate the purposes and principles of sentencing as set forth in Section 3553A. And while the office agrees that Cohen should receive credit for his sentence in the SCO investigation, Special Counsel's Office investigation, that credit should not approximate the credit a traditional cooperating witness would receive, given, among other reasons, Cohen's affirmative decision not to become one. He didn't want to become a cooperating witness. He didn't want to enter into an agreement, a cooperation agreement. I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe they'll explain it, because I haven't read this yet. For these reasons, the office respectfully requests that this court impose a substantial term of imprisonment, one that reflects a modest downward variance from the applicable guidelines range. Just a modest reduction from 51 to 63 months. Just maybe they'll give him 7 years. Oh my God. Here's his conduct, his offense conduct, what he did. As described in the PSR and Criminal Information 18, Cohen committed 4 separate and serious crimes over the course of several years. These crimes: willful tax evasion, making false statements to a financial institution, illegal campaign contributions, and making false statements to Congress, were distinct in their harms, but bear a common set of characteristics. They each involved deception and were each motivated by personal greed and ambition. While Cohen, as his own submission makes clear, already enjoyed a privileged life, his desire for even greater wealth and influence precipitated an extensive course of criminal conduct described below. Cohen is a licensed attorney and has been since 1992. Until 2007, Cohen practiced as an attorney for multiple law firms, working on, among other things, negligence and malpractice cases. Okay, so he was an ambulance chaser. He was right. For that work, Cohen earned approximately $75,000 a year. Okay, so he's a bad ambulance chaser. $75,000. That represents 40% of every verdict he got in a year, right? That's not... Okay, in 2007, Cohen seized on an opportunity. This is the favor. Remember when Donald Trump the other day said, they asked him, well, if he's such a bum and he's such a liar and he's so bad, why did you hire? Oh, well, he did me a favor, and everybody was wondering what the favor, this is the favor. Okay. The board of directors of a condominium building in which Cohen lived, let that be known, everybody, this is Trump Tower, was attempting to remove from the building the name of the owner, individual one, Trump, of a Manhattan-based real estate company, the company. All right, so that's Trump, the Trump Organization. Cohen intervened, secured the backing of the residents of the building, and was able to remove the entire board of directors, thereby fixing the problem for individual one. Oh, I see. So he intimidated everybody on the board of the condo, everybody that served on the HOA, Homeowners Association. He intimidated them all, got them to resign, and therefore Trump's problem went away. Okay, I get it. That's the favor. Not long after, Cohen was hired by the company, Trump Organization, to the position of executive vice president and special counsel to individual one, Trump. He earned approximately $500,000 a year in that position. Well, that's quite an increase in salary, isn't it? Why, that represents a $525,000 increase. Must have been a lot of intimidation going on. In January 2017, Cohen formally left the company I'm just going to read the company, okay? Well, maybe I should just say Trump Organization, okay? So in 2017, January, Cohn formally left the Trump Organization and began holding himself out as the personal attorney to Donald Trump, who at that point had become president of the United States. In January 2017, Cohn also launched two companies, Michael D. Cohn and Associates, PC, a legal practice, and EC, Essential Consultants, a consulting firm. Well, you know where this is going, right? Both businesses were operated from the offices of a major law firm located in New York, and that firm paid Cohn $500,000 a year as salary. Cohn also secured a substantial amount of consulting business for himself throughout 2017 by marketing to corporations what he claimed to be unique insights and access to Donald Trump. But while Cohn made millions of dollars from these consulting arrangements, his promises of insight and access proved essentially hollow. Documents obtained by the government and witness interviews revealed that Cohn performed minimal work, and many of the consulting contracts were ultimately terminated. During and subsequent to his employment with the Trump Organization, Cohn also maintained additional sources of income. Most significantly, Cohn owned taxi medallions in New York City and Chicago worth millions of dollars. Cohn held these medallions as investments and leased them to operators who paid Cohn a specified monthly rate per medallion. Cohn has also made substantial investments in real estate and other business ventures. This second paragraph is about tax evasion. Between tax years 2012 and 16, Cohn evaded taxes by failing to report more than $4 million in income to the IRS, which resulted in the avoidance of more than $1.4 million due to the U.S. Treasury. Specifically, Cohn failed to report several different streams of income on his tax returns, which he swore were true and correct. The largest source of undisclosed income was more than $2.4 million that Cohn received from a series of personal loans that he made to a taxi operator to whom Cohn leased certain of his Chicago taxi medallions. Taxi operator 1. Well, we know this is a Russian immigrant. Between 12 and 15 for a total principal of $6 million. Each of these loans that he made carried an interest rate in excess of 12%. Wow, that's big. That's not even interest. Now, you got to remember, the interest rates were like, 2%, 2.85, 12, over 12%. Cohn funded the majority of these loans from a line of credit with an interest rate of less than 5%, such that Cohn was earning a substantial spread on the difference between the two loan rates. At Cohn's direction, taxi operator 1 made the interest payment checks to Cohn personally. The checks were deposited in Cohn's personal bank account or in an account in his wife's name. In total, Cohn received more than $2.4 million in interest payments from taxi operator 1 between 2012 and 16. Cohn did not inform his accountant of this arrangement or provide him with documentation in support of these loans and interest payments, and intentionally reported none of that income to the IRS in order to hide and evade paying taxes. Cohn also concealed more than $1.3 million in income he received from another taxi operator to whom Cohn leased some of his New York taxi medallions, taxi operator 2. This income took two forms. First, in 2012, taxi operator 2 paid Cohn a bonus of at least $870,000 to induce Cohn to allow him to operate some of Cohn's taxi medallions. Cohn did not report $710,000 of the $870,000 bonus payment. In addition, Cohn arranged with taxi operator 2 to receive a portion of the medallion income personally, as opposed to having the income paid to Cohn's medallion entities. That is, while most of the medallion income was paid to Cohn's medallion entities, whose bank statements were provided to his accountant for the purpose of calculating income tax, certain income was provided by taxi operator 2 directly to Cohn personally and deposited into his personal account. Cohn again chose not to notify his accountant of this arrangement or identify the additional income to be reported. Finally, Cohn hid several other sources of income from his accountant and the IRS. For example, in 2014, Cohn received $100,000 for brokering the sale of a piece of property in a private aviation community in Florida. There's always Florida. In 2015, Cohn made approximately $30,000 in profit from the sale of a rare and highly valuable French handbag. In 2016, Cohn received more than $200,000 in consulting income from an assisted living company, and Cohn reported none of this to the IRS or his accountant. Cohn's evasion of these taxes was willful. In his sentencing submission and his submissions to the probation department in connection with the preparation of the PSR, Cohn repeatedly attempted to minimize the seriousness of his decision not to report millions of dollars of income over a period of years by blaming his accountant for not uncovering the unreported income. Specifically, Cohn's submission to the probation department asserted that, quote, all relevant bank records were provided annually by Cohn to his accountant for the relevant years. Cohn repeats these efforts to blame his accountant in his sentencing submission. See, this is what pisses them off. This is what his sentencing submission that his lawyer submitted to the court. Michael's case stands out for comparative purposes in that a failure to reasonably identify all income to a tax preparer who received all client-related bank statements is quite different from the sophisticated and complex schemes typical of criminal tax evasion cases. That's what pissed them off. The cavalier attitude of his attorney. And obviously they interviewed his accountant, and his accountant said, no, he didn't give me those documents. All right. Cohn's assertions are simply false. As the government was prepared to prove at trial, the defendant did not provide his accountant with all client-related bank statements, and the information Cohn did provide to his accountant could not have led his accountant to uncover unreported income. Between 14 and 16, and not for 12 or 13, Cohn provided his accountant with certain bank records and instructed his accountant to identify potential tax deductions. Cohn's accountant did not go through Cohn's bank statements looking for potential sources of income, nor did Cohn ever request this. Indeed, Cohn routinely refused to pay for any work by his accountant, not specifically requested by Cohn. That's very Trumpian. Stiffen your account, stiffen the attorney. Oh, man. Okay. Then let's move on. So this is his tax stuff, and they go on in depth about how he lied to his accountant. And then they move on to how he made false statements to banks. In December 2015, Cohn contacted a bank, Bank 3, to apply for a home equity line of credit. Okay, this is the Stormy Daniels payment, I'm guessing. In his application for the equity line of credit, Cohn made false statements about his net worth and monthly expenses. Specifically, Cohn failed to disclose more than $20 million in debt to another bank. Oh, these people are just shameless, man. You're making all this freaking money and you're still $20 million in debt and you're hiding millions of dollars? Oh, I don't know how they live with themselves. I don't know how they sleep at night. I really don't. I'm guessing Lunesta. 3 milligrams. I don't know. They're knocking themselves out. This is probably why they all drink. Specifically, Cohn failed to disclose more than $20 million in debt he owed to another bank, and also materially understated his monthly expenses to Bank 3 by omitting at least $70,000 in monthly interest payments to Bank 2 on that debt. Oh my God, $70,000 a month just in interest payments. So I get upset when I get my mortgage statement and like almost half of my, my payment doesn't go to principal, goes to interest. It pisses me off. $70,000 over here a month in interest. These statements were the latest in a series of false statements Cohn made to financial institutions in connection with credit applications. By the way, a background. By February 2013, Cohn had obtained a $14 million line of credit from another bank, Bank 1. There's 3 banks here. Bank 1. That was collateralized by his taxi medallions. In November 2014, Cohn refinanced this medallion debt at Bank One with Bank Two. Oh my God. The transaction was structured as a package of individual loans to the entities that owned Cohn's New York medallions, totaling more than $20 million and personally guaranteed by Cohn. Whoops. That's a mistake. Even I know that. Following the closing of these loans, the $14 million line of credit with Bank One was closed. Oh, I see. So he only borrowed $20 million from the other bank by collateral. Oh, Jesus Christ. In 2013, Cohn made a successful application at Bank 3, the bank to which he later would make false statements in connection with the home equity line of credit, for a mortgage on his Park Avenue condominium. In that application, Cohn did not disclose the $14 million line of credit he had at Bank One. In February 2015, Cohn attempted to secure financing from Bank 3 to purchase a summer home for $8.5 million. Once again, he concealed the $14 million line of credit, which by this point took the form of the $20 million in refinance loans with Bank 2, for which he's paying $70,000 a month in interest. Oh, yeah. And he's buying an $8.5 million summer home. Wow. In connection with the summer home application, Cohn had to go to great and deliberate lengths to keep the debt hidden from Bank 3. How does that even happen? How does that even happen? I once ordered like a pasta boat and didn't pay for it, and they reported me to the credit bureau. I love the pasta boat. Specifically in connection with this proposal. Oh my God, this is horrendous. Okay. And so, in addition to failing to disclose more than $20 million in medallion liability, Cohn also intentionally omitted the tens of thousands in monthly interest payments he was making on that debt. Cohn's monthly cash flow, or debt ratio, of expenses to income was a core component of Bank 3's underwriting processes that considered an applicant's ability to make loan payments and guard against the bank's need to enter into lengthy foreclosure proceedings. In evaluating prospective loans, Bank 3 typically required the borrower's monthly expenses to represent no more than 45% of his monthly income. Based on the incomplete information contained in the home equity loan application, Cohn's debt ratio appeared to be below the benchmark set by Bank 3. Had Cohn truthfully disclosed his expenses, including the extent of the monthly interest payments he was required to make to Bank 3, his debt ratio would have significantly exceeded the benchmark. In April 2016, Bank 3 approved Cohn for a $500,000 line of credit equity loan, which it would not have approved for Cohn's, but for Cohn's concealment of truthful information. Okay. So that's that. Now, here's the illegal campaign contributions. All right, this is number 4. On approximately June 16, 2015, Donald Trump, says individual 1, for whom Cohn worked at the time, began an ultimately successful campaign for president of the United States. Why are they bothering with individual 1 if they're going to say ultimately successful president? This could be only what? It can't be, 43. Can't be, right? Cohn had no formal title with the campaign, but had a campaign email address, and at various times advised the campaign, including on matters of interest to the press. Cohn also made media appearances as a surrogate and a supporter of Donald Trump. During the campaign, Cohn played a central role in 2 similar schemes to purchase the rights to stories, each from women who claimed to have had an affair with Donald Trump, so as to suppress the stories and thereby prevent them from influencing the election. With respect to both payments, Cohn acted with the intent to influence the 2016 presidential election. Cohn coordinated his actions with one or more members of the campaign, including through meetings and phone calls about the fact, nature, and timing of the payments. In particular, and as Cohn himself has now admitted, with respect to both payments, he acted in coordination with and at the direction of Donald Trump. As a result of Cohn's actions, neither women spoke to the press prior to the election. In approximately June 2016, a model and actress, woman 1, attempted to sell her story of an alleged extramarital affair with Donald Trump. Okay, this is Karen McDougal, obviously. Woman one, let's just say Karen McDougal, knew the story would be of considerable value because of Donald Trump's candidacy for president. Karen McDougal retained an attorney to represent her in this matter. That's Keith. Attorney one then contacted editor-in-chief, that's David Pecker, of a popular tabloid magazine, that's the National Enquirer. So we'll just fill this in as we go, and offered to sell the story to the Enquirer. The chairman and chief executive officer of the media company that owns the National Enquirer had a prior relationship with Donald Trump and Cohn. In August 2014, Pecker met with Cohn and Trump and had offered to help deal with negative stories about Donald Trump's relationships with women by identifying such stories so that they could be purchased and killed. Consistent with that offer, the editor told David Pecker about Karen McDougal's story, and they contacted Cohn to tell him about the offer. At Cohn's urging and with his promise that the National Enquirer that the Trump organization would be reimbursed, David Pecker began negotiating the purchase of Karen McDougal's story. On August 5th, 2016, the National Enquirer entered into an agreement with Karen McDougal to acquire the limited life rights to the story of her relationships with any then married men in exchange for $150,000 and a commitment to feature her on 2 magazine covers and publish over 100 magazine articles authored by her. The agreement's principal purpose was to suppress Karen McDougal's story so as to prevent the story from influencing the election. Between August 16 and September 16, Cohn agreed with David Pecker to assign the rights to the non-disclosure portion of the Trump organization's agreement with Karen McDougal to Cohn for $125,000. Cohn then incorporated a shell entity called Resolution Consultants, LLC, to be used in the transaction. David Pecker and Cohn ultimately signed the agreement, and a consultant for Corporation One, using his own shell entity, provided Cohn with an invoice for the payment of $125,000. That assignment was never completed, however. And then Stormy Daniels. On October 8th, 2016, an agent for an adult film actress, woman 2, Stormy, informed editor 1 that Stormy Daniels was willing to make public statements and confirm on the record her alleged past affair with Donald Trump. David Pecker and the editor contacted Cohn and put him in touch with the then attorney, not Michael Avenatti, the first one, Keith, whatever his name was, who was also representing Stormy Daniels. Over the course of the next few days, Cohn negotiated a $130,000 agreement with Attorney 1 to purchase Stormy Daniels' silence. Cohn received a signed confidential settlement agreement and a separate side letter from the first attorney. Cohn did not immediately execute the settlement agreement, nor did he pay Stormy Daniels. On the evening of October 25th, 2016, with no final deal in place with Stormy Daniels, the attorney for her told the editor at the National Enquirer that Stormy Daniels was close to completing a deal with a media outlet under which she would make her story public. The editor texted Cohn, quote, "We have to coordinate something on the matter the attorney for Stormy Daniels is calling you about, or it could look awfully bad for everyone." David Pecker and the editor at the National Enquirer then called Cohn through an encrypted telephone application. Cohn agreed to make the payment and then called the attorney to finalize the deal. On October 26, Cohn emailed an incorporating service to obtain the corporate formation documents for another shell company, Essential Consultants, LLC, which he had incorporated a few days earlier. That afternoon, he directed that a $131,000 payment from his home equity loan, the same home equity loan he had obtained by false statements, be deposited into an account he had just opened in the name of Essential Consultants, LLC. The next day, Cohn wired the $130,000 from that account to Stormy Daniels' first attorney. On the wire form, Cohn falsely indicated that the purpose of the payment was to pay a retainer. On November 1st, 2016, Cohn received copies of the final signed confidential settlement agreement and the side letter from Stormy Daniels' first attorney. After the election, Cohn wanted to be reimbursed for election-related expenses, including the $130,000 payment he had made to Stormy Daniels. Cohn presented an executive of the company, the Trump Organization. Oh, this has to be Weisselberg. This is where Rich in Denver was saying, where's Weisselberg? Cohn presented an executive of the Trump Organization with a copy of a bank statement reflecting the $130,000 wire transfer. Cohn also requested reimbursement of an additional $50,000 that represented a claimed payment for campaign-related tech services. Executives of the Trump Organization agreed to reimburse Cohn by adding $130,000 and $50,000, grossing up that amount to $360,000 for tax purposes, and adding a $60,000 bonus. So now Cohn would be paid $420,000 in total. Executives of the Trump Organization decided to pay the $420,000 in monthly installments of $35,000 over the course of a year. At the instruction of an executive for the company, Cohn sent monthly invoices to the Trump Organization for these $35,000 payments, falsely indicating that the invoices were being sent pursuant to a retainer agreement. The Trump Organization then falsely accounted for these payments as legal expenses. Oh, he screwed Donald Trump. This is bad. In fact, no such retainer agreement existed, and these payments were not legal expenses. Cohn, in fact, provided negligible legal services to Donald Trump or the Trump Organization in 2017, but were reimbursement payments. Cohn then received the $420,000 during the course of 2017. Well, basically what this is saying is the Trump Organization is dirty, and Weisselberg was a dirty accountant, a dirty CFO, and he was willing to, and Cohn was such a handler, that he said, oh, I laid out $130,000, for which he lied to get, right, to the bank, but I laid out $130,000, and I saved you from, the exposure from Karen McDougal, and so now I want a bonus payment, and I want you to cover the taxes on the $130,000, and they agreed to pay him $420,000. And Weisselberg said, yeah, we'll hide it. We'll say it's legal fees. And in fact, he did no legal work. Okay, the next part is about Cohn's false statements to Congress, and then Cohn's meeting with law enforcement. We'll continue right after the break. We're almost done here. Well, no, not quite. Got a ways to go. These pages aren't numbered. It's not good, though. It looks like the Trump Organization is a dirty, dirty, dirty organization. Right there, just that alone.
Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right. It looks to me, just reading through this whole thing, skimming it and doing a word search through it, that the reason why they're recommending a very substantial term of imprisonment is because Michael Cohen would not enter into a cooperation agreement with Robert Mueller. They say that he did provide some information that was central to the probe, which is the Russia collusion, Russia conspiracy probe, but not all of it. And he would not voluntarily enter into a cooperation agreement. They said while Cohen's provision of information to the special counsel's office merits credit, his description of his actions as arising solely from some personal resolve, as opposed to arising from the pendency of criminal charges and the desire for leniency, ignores that Cohen first reached out to meet with the special counsel at a time when he knew he was under imminent threat of indictment in this district. As such, any suggestion by Cohen that his meetings with law enforcement reflect a selfless and unprompted about face are overstated. Now, you remember that people, Lanny Davis and people representing Michael Cohen were all over the TV saying, you know, he's made a choice. He wants to be with his family and his country. And that's not what's going on here. They say with respect to Cohen's provision of information to this office in its 2 meetings with him, this office assessed Cohen to be forthright and credible, and the information he provided was largely consistent with the other evidence gathered. Had Cohen actually cooperated, it could have been fruitful. He did provide what could have been useful information about matters relating to ongoing investigations being carried out by this office, but as Cohen partially acknowledges, it was his decision not to pursue full cooperation and his professed willingness to continue to provide information at some later unspecified time, which is of limited value to this office, both because he is under no obligation to do so, and because the office's inability to fully vet his criminal history and reliability impact his utility as a witness. Indeed, in his proffer session, which is, what you do when you go to the special counsel or you go to the prosecutor and you say, look, here, I'm going to cooperate. I want to enter into a cooperation agreement, which he did not do. And here's my proffer, meaning this is what I can give you with regard to your probe of this individual or entity. This is what I have. In his proffer sessions with the special counsel, Cohen only met with the office about the participation of others in the campaign finance crimes to which Cohen had already pleaded guilty. Cohen specifically declined to be debriefed on other uncharged criminal conduct, if any, in his past. Cohen further declined to meet with the office about other areas of investigative interest. As the court is undoubtedly aware, in order to successfully cooperate with this office, witnesses must undergo full debriefings that encompass their entire criminal history, as well as any and all information they possess about crimes committed by both themselves and others. He wouldn't come clean. They knew they couldn't put him on the stand because a good defense lawyer would be able to say, ask a question about previous criminal activity that Cohen didn't give to the prosecutor and be sandbagged. Therefore, his utility as a witness was like nothing. This process permits the office to fully assess the candor, culpability, and complications attendant to any potential cooperator, and it results in cooperating witnesses who, having accepted full responsibility for any and all misconduct, are credible to law enforcement and hopefully to judges and juries. Cohen affirmatively chose not to pursue this process. Cohen's efforts thus fell well short of cooperation, as that term is properly used in this district, and for this reason, Cohen is not being offered a cooperation agreement letter. Within the confines of the special counsel investigation itself, this office does not dispute that Cohen's assistance to the special counsel was significant. But because Cohen elected not to pursue more fulsome cooperation with this office, including on other subjects and his own history of criminal conduct, The office cannot assess the overall level of Cohen's cooperation to be significant. Therefore, the office submits that in fashioning a sentence on its case, the court afford Cohen credit for his efforts with the special counsel, but credit that accounts only for a modest variance from the guidelines range and does not approach the credit typically given to actual cooperating witnesses in the district. And so they surmise on, they'll go through the law for like another 10, 15 pages. And so on page 24 of 40, they say, as set forth here in consideration of the factors set forth in this statute 18 U.S.C., section 3553A, weigh heavily in favor of a substantial term of imprisonment. In particular, the nature and seriousness of the offenses and the need to promote respect for law and to afford adequate deterrence are especially weighty considerations. So he didn't cooperate. I think he's still holding out for a pardon. I think that's what it is. I think he got caught in some tax evasion crap. I think that the Weisselman giving the CFO of the Trump Organization, Mr. Weisselman, limited immunity to provide the special counsel with the records about the Stormy Daniels and the Karen McDougal payments, made Michael Cohen boxed in, made him guilty of campaign finance violations. And also they discovered some tax evasion because they talked to his accountant. And his accountant wasn't going to take the fall for him. And his accountant said, you know something? He never reported all this income from the taxi medallions, and look at these bank loans. So they have Michael Cohen on defrauding of the banks. They have Michael Cohen on defrauding the people of the United States through tax evasion, etc. And they have Michael Cohen doing dirty business for a dirty organization called the Trump Organization because they gave limited immunity to the CFO of the Trump Organization, Mr. Weisselman, who I like to call Heisenberg. But as far as giving any information as far as the recordings that he has or full documentation that he has or any matters having to do with meetings in Trump Tower, Russia, or any other things that are of interest to the special counsel's office under the original probe, which is a probe to see if there was a conspiracy to defraud the United States between the Donald Trump campaign, the Donald Trump transition team, and the Donald Trump administration with foreign entities known as Saudi Arabia and or Russia, China. Michael Cohen did not cooperate, and therefore Michael Cohen is going to jail for a really stinking long time. Can you do really quick math for me? You got a calculator? Anybody? How many years is 63? 63 divided by 12. What is that, like 6 years? 5 years? 5 years? Divided by 12. I can't do it in my head.
5.2 years.
5.2 years, thank you. So they're recommending some reduction of 5.2, which is the max, right? 31 would be, he's going to get 2 years in prison. I'm going to guess, and I'm going to say Michael Cohen goes to prison for 2.5 years. And he thinks that that's okay. He'll take the 2.5 years. For Donald Trump, he'll take it. Obviously, he's a criminal. Obviously, he's a criminal, and he wouldn't come clean about other criminal activities that he's engaged in. Now, remember, Felix Sater is cooperating. Felix Sater is Michael Cohen's childhood friend. Felix Sater was also the senior advisor to Donald Trump at the Trump Organization, and apparently Michael Cohen wouldn't give what Felix Sater told the special counsel that Michael Cohen could give. Hence, you're going to prison. On the other hand, Michael Flynn, substantial, which still tells me Flynn wore a wire. Okay, the next thing to drop is going to be the Manafort sentencing memo, and that should be a doozy. None of this was redacted. And why? Because none of this gave any information of national security. That's why. Buy a stinking podcast.